I'm glad to be here, Eric.
Cheers.
I'm sorry it took me so long to commit, but I get nervous.
No, I hear you. All right, well, super excited about this one for several reasons. One, our relationship. We actually, Doug, you and I, we met through Khail at SunLife. Plug number one.
SunLife Organics is a health and wellness cafe featuring the finest ingredients from around the world, personally sourced by me.
Yeah.
The best smoothies, juices, acai bowls, bone broth, and just about anything else you need to live at your peak optimal health.
For the classes, not the masses, someone once said.
Yeah.
With that said, Doug, you and I met through Khail, and I was fortunate enough to go on your podcast. So I'd love briefly, we just go down the line real quick. Doug, who are you and what brings you here?
Yeah, man, thanks for having me. It's good to be with two of my homies. So I'm Doug Bopst, host the Adversity Advantage podcast. Been a personal trainer for almost 13 years, written a couple books, been in recovery for over 15 years. Fitness actually saved my life from addiction when I was in jail. Motivational speaker, coach, and just excited. Like I said, I've had both of you on the show, so it's cool to have things come full circle and just have a little round table discussion here and see where things go.
You're a stud. Khail.
Love that. Khail Rafati.
Within 60 seconds, pal.
It's hard to do, Eric, 'cause I want to talk about what I do. Yeah, Khail Rafati, founder of SunLife Organics and author of the book I Forgot to Die, recovering drug addict, alcoholic.
Yeah, hold on. I want to get into that before you. Let me draw that up for everybody listening. Okay.
Sure.
So the way, if I look at a paper here, and it's like, okay, drug addict. 5'4.5", 5'5" on a good day, in and out of jail, homeless, the list goes on. And then on the other side of that page, tan, fittest you've ever been, early 50s, beautiful girlfriend, happiness. I mean, I'm talking probably serving millions of people the best ingredients around the world. I would say probably, over 300-400 employees. How does this person on this hand or this page arrive at this place?
Oh, man, I don't know. In the beginning, I thought it was because I worked really hard or because I was a good 12-step person or whatever. But I really think what it boils down to is the grace of God, and I don't think I've cornered the market on the grace of God. I believe the grace of God is available for everybody. I was just in a weird spot. I was 33 years old, and like you said, homeless and high school dropout, convicted felon. Like, my life was over, so I didn't have any fight left. I didn't have the ability to be like, I'm good, God, I got this on my own. Like, I was screwed, and so I don't mean metaphorically. I mean, I physically got on my knees and I begged God for help, and help came, and I continue to do that. And I think the difference between me and most people is I knew I didn't deserve the grace that I received, so I grabbed onto it, as they love to say in our world, like a drowning man seizes a life preserver. I literally grabbed onto the grace of God like a life preserver, and I held on to it, and I made every mistake you can make, but I held on to that grace of God, and I never went backwards.
Doug, was your final aha moment, I'm never going back to the drugs and in and out of jail? Did you have a similar kind of awakening?
Yeah, I think we all have this experience, right, where you reach a crossroads in your life between where the fear and the pain of making that change becomes less than the turmoil you're experiencing in your life, right? And for me, when I was in jail, when I got to jail, I was a severe, opiate addict where I was snorting hundreds of milligrams of Oxycontin up my nose every single day.
Sneezing just thinking about that.
21 jobs by the time I was 21 years old, 50 pounds overweight, broken relationships with my family, thinking about, what life would be like without me here on earth, massive depression, anxiety, like all this stuff, that my cellmate got me into fitness when I was in jail. And he looked like a more jacked version of Brad Pitt from Fight Club. And he was when I met him, he was doing like all these push-ups and pull-ups, and he asked me to work out with him one day. And I was like, dude, there's no shot in hell I'm going to work out with you. Like, I could have been a model for Pillsbury at the time. And so he's like, all right, man, whatever.
Yeah.
So then, like, just like any good coach would, we're in the cell one night talking, and he's like asking me questions about my story. And I'm blaming my parents for their divorce. I'm blaming kids for bullying me. I'm blaming girls for rejecting me. And he looks at me and he's like, quit being a bitch. And in that moment, I wanted to be coddled. I wanted him to tell me, it's okay, Dougie, like everything's going to be okay. But he told me what I needed to hear. He's like, dude, you're blaming everybody else for your problems but yourself. And that conversation is what shifted everything for me, because I realized I still had some power. Because I think like when you're in the depths of addiction, as Khalil knows, like you feel so powerless. You feel like you have no control over your life. And the drugs had gotten out of my system a bit. I was thinking like somewhat clearly, and I was like, man, this guy's right. Like, I can change if I want to. He's like, you got two choices: be a man or be a bitch. Be a man, look yourself in the mirror, and say that you got yourself here. It's up to you to change. Or you can go be a bitch, go cry in the corner, blame everybody else for your problems. And from that moment on, that's what inspired me to work out. Got down to do a push-up, couldn't do a push-up, and he trained me in there.
Couldn't do one?
No, not even from my knees.
Wow.
Could barely walk up and down the steps because I was also smoking like a pack and a half of cigarettes a day.
That'll do it.
And with his motivation and encouragement, training me in there every single day, I was able to do a set of 10 push-ups and run a mile before my sentence was over.
Fucking A. Do you guys still keep in touch?
We did for a while. Like we exchanged letters a lot. Getting at when I got out of jail, met up with him.
Exchange any bodily fluids?
No. There we go.
Whatever it is.
No.
Things happen.
No, it's okay. So we exchanged some letters. He gave me a workout plan that I still have framed in my place today, so I don't forget where I came from.
Yeah.
Met up with him a few times to work out. But then I think he unfortunately went down a darker path.
Oh, shit. He
Ended
went back?
Ended up passing away last year.
I'm sorry.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
but I ended up getting an opportunity to speak at his funeral because his mom, I guess, he had told his mom about me and his family. And so it's crazy that these things come full circle. Like when you're sharing your story like this or having conversations, to where after he passed away, his mom reached out to me on social media and she's like, hey, you were the Doug who was in jail with my son, right? And she told me the news. And then after that, is like, I don't know if it was his cousin, somebody reached out and was like, oh my gosh, like, you don't know me, but I just want to let you know, like, I was looking through your Facebook because I just saw you were connected to Eric, as that was his name. Eric Gatto was his name. And he was like, dude, like, she was like, I was listening to these interviews you've been doing and talking about Eric, and it's so meaningful because that's the Eric that we remember, like the guy who was very helpful and coaching me.
That's awesome.
And because I always wondered, I was like, why does this guy care about me so much?
Yeah.
Like, why does he believe in me so much? Out of all the people in there, like, why did he pick me to just say, you know what, dude, like, you better get your shit together. You better get your act together.
Yeah.
I'm going to help you change. And that's what, at first it was like, man, I had this person come into my life with no skin in my game, no skin in the game to really help me. And that was like a big motivation for me to change. Cause like, I don't want to let this guy down.
Yeah. Especially because he's helping you for fun and for free.
Yeah.
The guy, Sean, he's a yogi and a masseuse that used to drive up to Topanga Canyon. I had gotten clean and sober, but I mean, I stayed homeless. I mean, technically homeless for 2.5 years. I didn't have a place to live. So this guy, Barron, he was a biker, not biker, let me crash at his place up at the top of Topanga. And this guy named Sean, who was a yoga teacher and a masseuse, would drive up. I had no money. I had nothing. Food stamps. And he would bring me jars of ginger and burdock root and carrot juice and raw macadamia nuts. And he would massage me and he would teach me yoga. And yeah, there was a little bit of like a responsibility, like even though I really wanted to like just get some laundry changed together and go get a bag of dope so I could feel better, because I felt pretty bad at that time. I was 109 pounds, maybe at that point probably 120 pounds, but I'm 174 pounds now. Dope was not a good look for me, and I mixed the cocaine with it. I shot speedballs.
Yeah.
But yeah, Sean selflessly. And it's so weird because we were just texting when I was on my way here. We still talk. He helped me for fun and for free. And recently, Justin Donald,
Yep.
the investor guy, the big author investor guy. So he wasn't feeling good. He said, I got this event to do, and are there things that I should be taking? And I didn't really pay attention because I'm thinking about me,
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, yeah, get a wellness shot or whatever. And then like later that night, I'm like, man, that was fucking pretty thoughtless. Like you have a friend reaching out, an amazing friend. Justin Donald is an amazing guy. You should have him on your podcast. Um, and he was not feeling well, and he had this big event.
Yeah.
So I texted him back. I'm like, dude, so sorry. You got to get bone broth. You got to drink bone broth, which I know you drink a couple times a day. Get the bone broth and get this and get this and I said, as a matter of fact, Taylor's out of town running the company, and I said, where are you at? And he's like, no, I'm at the something hotel. He named like some fancy hotel in downtown. I got to set up for my event, but I'll try to stop by tomorrow. I literally just jumped in my car, raced to SunLife, got all this stuff, put it in a big bag, drove to the hotel. I didn't realize how big of an event this was. This guy throws a massive, very, very expensive, coveted, hard to get into event once a year. And he's got logos all over the windows. Like that's how big this event was. This is not some like little mastermind group. This is like hundreds of people. And so, just like you would, Eric, I roll in, go up to the front desk. I'm like, I need to see Justin Donald immediately. I have a very important delivery for him, whatever. They're like, oh, hang on. We got to get security because you can't get up to the top floor because that's he's holding a private event. And I'm like, oh, he's having the event right now? And they're like, yeah. And I said, yeah, you better get security. So they get security, and I go up there, and there's like a sea of people. And I'm like, what am I going to do? How am I going to find this guy? And as I'm thinking that, somebody steps out of the way. I see him in the crowd. I walk right up to him. I'm in like my pajamas, and I always dress like this. Fear of God. And I walk up, and I hand him the giant bag of stuff, and he's just like shocked. Like, what are you doing here? And how did you get up here? I said, long story, but I just wanted to bring you this stuff. This is what you need. This is going to make you feel better. Back to the guy helping you for fun and for free. He then goes, oh, well, you're welcome to stay, because he knows there's a lot of fancy people there that I would like to meet.
Sure.
And I said, no, I'm good, man. And you know where I'm going with this. I'm like, I'm good. I just wanted to drop this off for you. I don't like crowds. I wanted to stay.
Yeah.
If I would have stayed, it would have taken the magic sauce out of the gesture.
Gesture. Yeah.
Yes. So I hand him the stuff. I turn around. I walk out, go down the elevator. I drive home. I felt good. And I try to do good stuff like that and not get caught.
Yeah.
It's like one of my philosophies is try to do good things and don't get caught.
Sure.
Because if you talk about it, then it takes away the magic. So 3-4 days later, whatever it was.
Not to interrupt you. I know you don't like objects large by your face, but bring the mic in a little bit more,
yeah.
Just in case,
So he's at Collective, and he walks up, and look, I didn't cure cancer. I didn't write the great American novel. I brought the guy some goodies from my shop, And he literally looked like tearing up when he saw me, and he's like, that like fixed me like that. And I said, there's a reason why, because when someone's helping you for fun and for free, selflessly, like this guy helped you in the cellmate, or Sean, the yogi masseuse guy, helped me, there's a magic that takes place. There's an energy exchange that takes place there.
It's special. It's very hard to, in moments like that, to not, oh man, I really do want to stay. But then that takes away that magic.
Dude, I saw Ty Lopez, or I think it was Ty Lopez, and I saw a couple other fancy people.
I'm sure it's.
I wanted to bust the
special.
business cards out, but no, you gotta.
There's something about missing out, thinking I'm gonna miss out on this opportunity.
Yeah.
But then that takes away the magic of him feeling seen and cared for.
Yes.
Yeah,
and the energy there is much more intense, and I try to go out of my way. Look, the world we live in. I remember this is 10, 12 years ago. Cindy Crawford walked in, and she ordered $1 million smoothie, and I'm like, no, I got it. I want to treat you. And she's like, oh my God, you're so sweet. I'm like, no, you're Cindy Crawford. You're the most beautiful woman in the world.
Yeah.
If I'm digging ditches for people in Africa to get them fresh water, then you can say, hey, he's a pretty decent guy. But if I'm treating a supermodel to a smoothie, that doesn't make me a good guy. But if I can, in private, without getting caught, go out of my way to help a friend who's sick, or this dude, turning you on to fitness, or my friend Sean turning me on to. I mean, I think about it sometimes. That dude, he brought me. I'll never forget. He brought me Pure Synergy powder, which I'm sure is still a company. It was this greens powder, and he said, just put it in this juice that I made you and mix it up and drink it. I started to expel all this like poison from my body, and I started to feel like this life force coming into me. And I literally started to look in the mirror and saw like the collagen return to my face and the blood and the color return to my face. And like, much like your physical transformation, I saw a miracle happen. But what if Sean didn't do that? Because like I watched 10,000 dudes sit at 12-step meetings pounding coffee and smoking cigarettes that didn't have a Sean.
Right.
Or didn't have a
Eric.
To turn them on to fitness. What if Sean wasn't there? What if Eric wasn't there? What would my life... So I guess the point is, you never know what one small gesture or a couple of small gestures are going to do for somebody.
Yeah. I'd love to know, and starting with you, Doug, and piggybacking off of the comment about the program, what was like one of the harder steps for you?
Well, I didn't go to AA or NA. I
Okay.
mean, I have a lot of friends in the community, and ironically, I did a lot of the steps just through the life. I mean, because when I got out of jail, my main thing was like, okay, I found fitness. My main objective was just to stay away from the drugs that I was abusing and keep working out and do what my cellmate had kind of taught me. And I knew it would give me a shot to get better.
That's important too, because I feel like a lot of people wouldn't do the program just because like they're like, I don't need that. I don't know how to start it. I don't want that. But it's nice to hear that there is other ways for people to go and achieve.
And it wasn't like I didn't go to treatment. So normally in treatment, or if you have an interventionist help you, or if you go to like a court appointed program, that's like one of the things that they tell you to do is you better go to 12-step meetings. For me, Eric was like, dude, here's the workout plan. Here's what I want you to do. Remember, you're no longer a fat boy anymore. You don't have to ever be one again. Change the way you eat. Change who you spend time with. Change the way you talk to yourself. One of the biggest things he helped me do was change my posture. Because I had such low self-esteem as a kid. I walked almost like a hunchback. Folded up because I didn't like who I saw in the mirror. I didn't like my life. And he was like, dude, shoulders back. He's like, we're not going to do work. We're not going to be doing workouts until you fix your posture. Shoulders back, right?
Wow.
And it taught me that like the importance of just standing up and standing strong for myself. And one of the other things that fitness taught me, especially in jail, like, I don't know if it was David Goggins or somebody said that like it's easy to do meditation and workout and do all the things that we all talk about when things are good. When it counts is when life gets tough.
Right.
And life was tough for me in jail. I was detoxing from drugs. My life was completely destructed. I had crazy anxiety. Didn't know how to manage my emotions.
Were you kicking?
Yeah, I kicked cold turkey in jail.
Yeah,
for weeks.
Miserable.
Oh, it's the worst.
Miserable. The worst kick ever.
It's horrible. But in jail, I had to deal with my emotions in a healthy way. There was no more hiding. I couldn't go do drugs. I couldn't create some sort of drama or lash out at people because I would have gotten my butt kicked. Could have gone into solitary confinement. Could have gotten more time. All these things. So fitness taught me how to harness those emotions, and that I didn't have to react in the same way that I did. Big turning point for me in jail as well is, and I don't talk about this a lot because my relationship with my dad is good now, but my dad came to visit me with my brothers, and this was soon after I had started working out. I remember when I first started working out, some of the guys in jail were like, dude, think about what makes you angry. And I was just like, huh? Like I was so just numb from all the drugs. I couldn't even tap into my emotions. I don't know if you ever experienced this, Khail, but I was numb completely with emotions. And I never understood it. And so I started working out. Dad comes to visit me, and he's like, you're going to rehab when you get out of jail. You're doing all... He started yelling at me. Like, and he's on the one side of the window. I'm on the other side. I'm like, why are you yelling at me? I'm in jail. Like, how much worse do you want my life to get? I'm like, fuck rehab. I found fitness. I'm not going to go to rehab. And he started yelling. I was like, you know what? Like, fuck you. Hung up the phone. Walked out, went up to my cellmate, and I was like, let's work out. And it was the first time that I volunteered to work out. And it wasn't... I tapped into the anger.
Yeah.
And that was something that really helped me process a lot of the pain, because when I would be angry or upset and I would run in jail or walk or do push-ups or whatever, I would think about all the bad stuff that happened in my life.
Right.
And I would use that as fuel to become better, because I knew that if I did certain things, I could prove myself wrong and prove all those other people wrong. So that was something that really helped me, like not necessarily have to go into AA or NA, was just being able to manage my emotions effectively.
Yeah.
But there was times where, I hit emotional rock bottoms when I got addicted to fitness and external validation that led me down the path of Christianity, because I'm now a Christian, or led me into therapy to work on some like trauma stuff. But overall, the main thing that helped me was learning how to deal with discomfort in a healthy way, and harness that darkness that I had inside of me into a way that was constructive and that I could use it as a lever for personal growth.
And sustain it.
Yeah.
Well, same question for you, Khalil. Did you do the steps?
Yeah, I went through the steps like 5 times. Okay. I did 12-step programs. I had nowhere else to go.
Yeah, I'm really curious. You know what I thought about? Because I know in your book you talk about being homeless and all that. What was that first night like? Just nowhere to go and you're on the street.
Oh.
Do you remember those thoughts?
I mean, I just had a barrage of flashes. I was,
because people talk about I have nowhere to go. Like, for example, and just briefly, when my dad passed from drugs, I think I told you that before, and you too, when I was 12.
Yeah.
And then a year later, we had there was that pink note on the door. We had to leave.
Yeah.
So we had massive garbage bags, but we went to my uncle's studio.
Yeah.
We were kicked out, but we had the next best thing, which wasn't the best thing, but
we had done the hotels and then crashed at friends' houses and then went to the cheap crack hotels and then slept in our car sometimes. But when she got extracted by this guy named Warren Boyd was a very famous interventionist / extractor. He would go into these high profile situations and he would take the person away. So when she got extracted from Spencer Recovery Center, everything was in her name. I was just such an idiot. The checking account, the bank account, the car, everything was in her name. So that last night in the hotel, and I'm just fucking just going to town, just pushing off and having seizures and getting more heroin, getting more coke, pushing off. And then, the next day they're pounding on the door, you got to get out, blah, blah, blah. And I remember it very, very specifically. I was over by Century and Sepulveda. I was in a crack motel in Inglewood. And I remember just hanging out under this bridge on Century and Sepulveda, and other homeless people coming around and showing me the opening in the fence and where you go sleep so you don't get jumped and whatever. And I just remember thinking wait, I don't belong here. This isn't supposed to happen. I'm supposed to I thought I was going to be a rock star. I thought I was going to be a movie star. I'm right. I'm 30 years old and I'm fucked. It's over. It was horrible. It was really, really, really horrible. And for the next almost 2 years, it got worse and worse and worse and worse. And the smell, the way I smelled, ringworm, scabies. I'm a really clean person. I'm not Albert clean, but I'm clean. And as if
it's an inside joke, we can't talk about it. Probably.
But no, I can't go out into the world unless I've taken a hot shower. That's just how I am. I shower before I get in my sauna. I shower before I get into my cold tub. I know it's a little excessive, but imagine this type of neurotic cleanliness mentality, but being homeless, the smell, the hunger. This is stupid, but this pops in my head a lot. I remember, because I would get my welfare, I would get my bus tokens, I would get my food stamps, and you just bounce around a lot. You never want to stay in one place, or you get rolled. People will jump you, people will beat you, so you want to always be moving around. But I was in downtown LA at that point. I would go back to Inglewood most of the time if I needed to sleep, because I could go through that opening in the fence and I could hang out and nobody would bother me. But I was in downtown LA and I was down by, I think it was the bus station, and I was just doing what I did at that point. Now I'm like fully homeless, so I would go into like ashtrays and I would pull cigarettes out and try to find one that had a decent amount on it. And I remember like digging through the ashtray and like finding like a pretty good cigarette with like that was like 3/4 left, and I was like so happy. And I remember taking it, and I remember turning around and these people were watching me, and they were just so disgusted. These were people in the financial district,
Yeah.
in their suits and their shoes, and the type of people that I never fit in long before being homeless. These were the people, these were like the good people that were going to have good lives when I was a little kid. These were the people that like finished high school and were going to go off to a good college and have good, those were those people. And they were looking at me with just utter disgust. I probably looked like shit. I probably was a sight for sore eyes. I'm sure I had blood all over me. I always had blood all over me because, you miss and whatever. I was a junkie. But the look on those people's faces, and I remember holding that cigarette, and I remember like wanting to say something like, fuck you. But I was like, wow, I'm like a street urchin. I'm a real piece of shit. I remember thinking that. I'm a real low life piece of shit. I'm now the guy that I used to drive past when I was a little kid, and you see that person like muttering to themselves with like one shoe half on, like going down the street, and I'd be like, look at that fucking bum.
It's insane.
I was that bum.
How much is that watch, by the way? My point being, it's almost like
It's a lot.
it's almost movie like how successful you are now, sitting in front of me. How successful you are, Doug, and how much you've overcome and the things that you're going to do with your life. And it's just like a real special thing, and thinking that like all of us have been in a rock bottom moment. Almost anyone probably listening or anyone in the world usually has a moment of like, I can't believe this is my reality. How do I get out of this? And then whether it's a month later, a year later, a decade later, now I'm in the best place I've ever been in my life.
Yeah.
I think is like,
well, we forget that we're capable of anything. I mean, we forget that. And especially like, that's my favorite part about my story. It's like, if a fucking dummy like me can do it, anybody can do it. I can't spell. I can't type. I went to 6th grade twice. If my girlfriend or any of my good friends were like around, like, like, I don't struggle to tie my shoes. That's a bit of an exaggeration. I leave them tied like that, and then I adjust them. No, but in all seriousness, like, there's the kids at the shop will laugh at me because I don't know how to use the POS system. I don't know how to. I was sitting one time at Morgan Stanley because these private equity people wanted to like buy part of my company, and they were like, blah 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 blah, and what's your like net and what's your gross or something like that, and I was like, oh, I don't know, and they're like, no, what do you mean? What's your net and what's your gross? What's your like something? And I was like, I don't know. At that time, we're like, we'll do like 17 million this year, and they're like, okay, but what's the? I guess what they were trying to say is like, what are the sales and what's the profit, or what's the EBITDA was another thing that they were throwing around. And I was like, I'm sitting in a fucking boardroom with a bunch of suits, and I'm like, I don't know. And they're laughing. They're like, no, seriously, what is it? And I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, you don't know? And I'm like, no, I don't even know what you're talking about. And they're like, you don't know the difference between like net sales and gross sales? It was some sort of question like that. I'm probably not saying the right words. And I said, no, I don't know. I don't fucking care. And it's not that I don't care about making money, but it's like what I care about. And I know it sounds cliched, but like, I always wanted to feel like I was a part of, and I never felt like I was a part of. I never felt like I was a part of. I always felt like I was dirty, and then I didn't belong. I got these fucked up, crazy immigrant parents, and I'm shaped weird, and my torso's too long, and my legs are too short, and my head's too big, and I got a weird name, and I was terrible at sports. I was terrible at school. But none of that shit matters.
No.
None of that shit matters, because if I align myself with whatever it is that created me, which I call God, and I don't even know what that means. I don't know what God's name is. I don't know what, I have a lot of fancy necklaces, but I don't know shit about religion, and that this doesn't make me spiritual. I'm not a spiritual guy, but I have a relationship with God, and I talk to God, and I don't have fancy prayers. I just say, God, I'm scared today. Can you be with me? God, can you please hold my hand today? God, can you help me? Like, I'm going into this meeting, with this landlord. This guy's a beast. He's a billionaire, and he's going to try to bully me around and push me around. And I'm like, God, can you please hold my hand in this meeting? And then I go into this meeting, and I walk in like I got 3 armed guards behind me. And I walk into that meeting, and I don't let anybody push me around. Right. And I stand up for myself, and I ask for what I want. And I have this real, like, I'm starting to develop like this real confidence, not the false bravado shit, not the lift weights, eat steaks, and I'm tough, and when I was a little kid, but this real confidence of knowing that in a little weird way, I'm doing God's work.
Yeah.
And awesome. No one can stop me.
You feel like you have that same kind of passion, Doug, of like this light behind you on the things you're doing with like the podcast and, the connecting with people?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think of my story in that I'm just grateful to be alive, kind of like we were talking about, earlier in the conversation, that of all the people to help, Eric picked me. And I feel like I owe that to him. I owe that to God to carry out this mission that I feel like I've been brought on earth to do. Like, I know, and other people say this too, so I don't want to say this is my thing, but I firmly believe this, that I don't want to ever get to like heaven and God be like, man, like you could have done so much more.
Sure.
If you had just believed in yourself, or if you had just trusted me. I never want to be that person. And, piggybacking a little bit off of what Khail said, I think one of the biggest mistakes people make when they're looking to transform is they go like, all right, I want to go from 0 to 100. Like, it's not like Khail got sober and was like, yeah, I'm going to start SunLife Organics tomorrow. It was like you're trying to survive and look for the next, looking for the thing in front of you. And then you build momentum off of that. Like when I was in jail, me being able to do a push-up for my knees felt like today me climbing Mount Everest. Like it was so transformational for me, right? In that built momentum. And then the one push-up was like, okay, I'm going to do 2, 3. And then now I'm doing a set of 10. And then the same thing happened with walking, where it's like, I'm walking a couple laps in jail. Now I'm running, and then you see where I'm going with this. And then that started to just build momentum and snowball in my life to like, you build all this confidence. And now it's like, okay, I'm going to change this part of my life. I'm going to change my friends. Oh, I'm going to become a personal trainer. I'm going to write a book. And that is what has helped me get to where I am today. And I imagine that's what's helped Khail too. And anybody, you and anybody who's achieved anything meaningful out of coming out of the depths of hell is that you just stack these small wins and build confidence. And there's that old saying that's like, you can never connect the dots moving forward, only moving backwards, right? And it's like, you look at now, you're able to kind of see how certain things in your life were able to help you get to where you are today. And that's the biggest mistake, man, because in this world of social media and the world we live in, everyone's checking out everybody else's highlight reels.
Sure.
And they're seeing people at the top of the mountain. But I tell you what, like my biggest boost in confidence didn't come from what I do now, didn't come from interviewing a certain guest or whatever. It came from just walking out of the depths of hell when I was in jail.
Yeah.
Which seems so small to a lot of people. Like, oh, you could only do 10 push-ups, or, oh, you could only run a mile, or you only lost X amount of weight when you got out of jail. But that gave me so much momentum to want to believe in myself. Because I think every addict that I know, that I've met, they don't want to be where they're at.
Right.
They're just like, how the heck do I get out of this mess? They've just lost belief. They've lost hope. They know they want something better for themselves. And it's like once you find that path out and you see a little bit of light and you're able to tap into that, it's like game over.
Yeah.
Because now you're creating a new reality for yourself. Like our environments and our lives create this false sense of reality. It's like if you're hanging around a bunch of drug addicts, that becomes normal to you. And you think your life's supposed to be like that. But once you change a little bit and maybe you start, being around, people like Sean that Khail had, or Eric like me, or people in your life, some of your clients that have been meaningful for you, you start to say, oh, like there's a different path in life. I can create this new normal for myself. And then the further away you get from the old normal into this new reality, the more confidence you build in your ability to move forward. I think people just need to understand that, like, it's not about going from 0 to 100, like the ultimate flex in life.
But also, your perception is your reality.
Yeah.
So people don't know that they can step out of
Yeah.
that reality.
They get consumed in the now.
Of
Yeah.
course, because you're. I mean, I'm going to use myself as an example. You know, somebody was talking about dating somebody that had borderline personality disorder. I didn't know that you could date somebody that didn't have borderline personality
Yeah.
disorder, right? And I'm not putting those women down that I dated. There's a reason why they dated me, because I probably had it, or I was a fucking mess, or whatever. Like, I didn't know that you could date somebody without moving in with them. I mean, I was like a lesbian. I would show up with a moving truck and a second date. Metaphorically speaking, obviously, I couldn't afford a moving truck, but like, I just would jump into these relationships with these broken, sad people in hopes that they were going to fix me. And I think part of them probably was hoping that I was going to fix them, but like, I can't fix them, and they sure as fuck couldn't fix me.
Right.
So the reality that I lived in was, you know, I'm never going to have that. And, oh God, look at them. And they have this. And, well, that's because they came from a good family. Oh, well, that's because they had good parents. Oh, that's because of nepotism. And that's generational wealth. And, you know, that's for the smart people. Well, they went to a good college. I had every fucking excuse in the book of why I was fucking broke, a broke fucking loser, even sober, 34, 35 years old. Why was I a broke fucking loser without a meaningful relationship, a true partnership with another human being? Because my perception was my reality. So as long as like I lived in this dark little bubble of like, this is the way the world is and that's just the way it is, it wasn't until these traumatic moments happened and all of a sudden like shattered that, right? Like when I was 34, I think I was 8 months sober. I was at Marmalade Cafe and I was with a couple of guys. There was one guy that always paid for lunch, so I always went to meetings with him because I wanted to eat. And I didn't have any money. So, and Robbie, my sponsor, bought me a phone. So my phone rings and I answer the phone. Like it was yesterday, even though it was almost 21 years ago. And it was my mom, and she didn't sound like herself. And she just said, I need to tell you something. I'm like, oh God, what happened? And she said, I have cancer and the doctor says it's very bad and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my God. And what's racing through my head is, you can't go see her. You don't have the money, right? Not, I didn't have the money to send her so she didn't have to go to work so she could go through the treatment, which you're acutely aware of how challenging that is. Right. My mom was 67 years old and frail and little.
Yeah.
And that moment shattered my perception. My perception shattered. I went back to this guy Sean's. I was living in this guy Sean's guest house. That he had a guest house and the main house they were doing construction on. So there was no electricity. I didn't fucking care. There was running water. That's all I needed. But at night I would have to light a candle and I would like, you know, whatever, read my books and like hang out. And couldn't go anywhere. I was fucking broke. But went back to Sean's guest house that night. And I was like, you fucking loser. You piece of shit fucking loser. You can't send her money. You can't go visit her. Look at your life. You fucking piece of shit. And I started getting so worked up and I started punching myself in my legs. And this is all by candlelight because, you know, there was no electricity. And I'm just crying and I'm crying and I'm crying. Like, you fucking loser. You fucking loser. Like, you fucking piece of shit. How can you be, you're almost 35 years old. You can't help your fucking mom. You fucking loser. And in the wee hours of the morning, again, I cried out to God. And I just was like, you know, got on my knees because that's what they made us do when I was a little kid in Catholic school. I just got on my knees and I'm just like, God, please, 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 God, please, please, please. Like, I'm never going to be poor again. I'm never going to be poor again. I'm going to be fucking rich. I'm going to be fucking rich. I'm going to have money. I'm going to be able to take care of my mom. You know, she's going to beat this cancer. I'm going to be able to take care of my mom. I'm going to be able to like have a girlfriend someday. I'm going to be able to like have an apartment someday. Like, I made a vow with myself and God that I was going to be rich. So my paradigm shattered. And all of those excuses, because, you can have
Yep.
excuses or you can have an amazing life.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have both. It's one or the other. So all the excuses and the old paradigm shattered. And as the sun rose that morning, I just sat there like, I'm going to be fucking rich.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to work my ass off. I'm going to take any job that comes my way.
Yeah.
I went to Sherman's place. I got a job grooming dogs. Lou Gossett Jr. walked in, saw me in there, took pity on me, said, how you doing, young man? And I said, not so good, but I'm working. I'm trying. He's like, here's my name, here's my number, here's my address. You guys are probably too young to even know who Lou Gossett
I know Lou. I've talked to him before.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I know.
So he said, here's my number, here's my address. I didn't know he was in recovery. I didn't know anything. He's like,
Yeah.
you come to my house tomorrow morning. I got work for you. He hired me. And then Cindy Landon saw me walking his dogs. And she's like, oh, who are you? Do you live in the neighborhood? I'm like, no, I work for Mr. Gossett. And she's like, oh, well, we have a bunch of dogs and I need somebody to run errands for me. And I'm like, I'm happy to run errands for you. She was Michael Landon's widow. Remember Michael Landon from Little House on the Prairie?
Mm-hmm.
So then she hired me. And then this other woman came in, Pietra Thornton, who was Billy Bob's ex-wife. And she was like, oh, well, we need somebody at my house to come clean up the dog poop and take the dogs running on the beat. Dude, I would do anything. I ended up becoming her Manny for Willie and Harry, her two little boys. And she paid me $40 an hour. $40 an hour for a dude that was living under a bridge 8 months prior. I'm now getting paid $40 an hour to teach these boys how to boogie board.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm teaching them how to boogie board. I get the job at the treatment center. I'm working 4 jobs. I'm working literally 20 hours a day. Now, granted, I was the overnight guy at the rehab, so when everyone would leave, I would sit up in my chair and just like kind of nod out and get some sleep. But I worked and I worked and I worked and I worked, and more money came in and more money came in. And my perception began to expand into this perception of abundance and prosperity. And I'm just not that bright, and I think inherently I allow myself to dream. I think the little boy in me that loved to dream and fantasize when I was a little kid never died. He's still in there. I'm 54 years old and I'm still dreaming, and I feel like I'm just getting started.
Yeah, dude, when your world opened up, just like you used your father going nuts at you, across the glass, like that, you used that as fuel, similar like that moment with your mom, horrible, and then boom, speaking things into existence, and then rippling into that, like the amount of people, it shocks me, like when I don't hear people that are like, look, if you got, God willing, you can walk, you can do all the things. Even if you don't, you see these amazing stories of people that still exercise, still try to source the great ingredients, still do manifesting and have affirmations. Like there is no, like the secret is, like we found it, you know, like we all have access to it.
Yeah.
And the more and more we're able to just implement that day in and day out, that's not going to be a guaranteed success on this day, but like you're going to win some moments throughout those days, which ripple. And that's kind of what we're talking about here is like, no matter what circumstances we're involved in right now, it can be temporary, and we can find a better way. We can create a better life. So it's actually like, it's really cool to hear those stories, because most people would have still been hitting those legs or would have, ended up back behind that glass. So the fact that you two are like here doing your thing, it's like, it's a special thing. And I see it day in, day out. Like you have cult leader on your shirt, and it's like, you do got a pretty cool cult at SunLife Organics. Like I've been to the one in Miami, I've been to the one in SunLife, but you talk about like, you don't need even like I'm sure there's plenty of people that sit with you at SunLife that are in some rocky situations financially, emotionally, but they surround themselves with people that have a different perception of reality that you didn't know, and it opens up those blinders that you're talking about.
People that believe that they do it. Sometimes, I mean, you probably have had this experience also, but like I helped some people in early recovery and they were fucked. And I remember saying to them like, no, you just got to stay clean and sober and your life's going to be amazing and everything's going to be great. Cause you want to pump them up. And then the next thing you know, they're like doing fucking movies or like getting record deals.
Yeah.
And then there's a part of me is like, well, wait a second, I didn't get that. You know, like
Yeah.
I mean, you got to believe. I mean, there was a young man named Charles Quint. I was going to a men's stag meeting in the Valley, and this young black kid named Charles Quint used to drive me nuts because he talked so slow. He talked so slow. He had this southern drawl, and he was super Christiany, like hardcore. Everything was Jesus, and and I was really anti-religion in my early recovery. And he would talk a lot about Jesus, a lot about God, but he would always say this one thing that fucking drove me nuts because I was homeless.
Yeah.
He would say, Khalil, God wants you to be rich. And I'm like, oh, thanks, Charles. Khalil, God wants you to be rich. And then the next week I'd see him. How you doing, Charles? Oh, doing good. How you doing? Yeah, I'm okay. Kind of craving, had a lot of craving this week and this and that. He go, well, Khalil, God loves you and so do I. And always remember, God wants you to be rich. And I don't know how long he had been saying that to me. It made me so fucking angry. And one day, like my dumbass with no filter, which is why I don't like doing podcasts because it takes 20 years to build a reputation and it takes 5 minutes to ruin one.
Right.
My dumbass snapped back at him and I said, really, Charles? Well, how come he didn't want you to be rich?
Yeah. That stings.
And he looked at me and he swallowed hard and he said, well, Khalil, I was playing Division I or something, went into some sort of football jargon college story, and he starts telling me this story, and he's like guaranteed, full ride, and drinks himself out of a scholarship and gets kicked out of school, but then gets back in by the grace of God. And he's going on and on. I'm like, where is he going with this? And then he tells me, he finally is like really progressing, and he's got all these NFL scouts looking at him, and I'm thinking like, what's the point of this fucking story? And then he tells the horrific tale of him bottoming out and drinking and blowing it yet again and getting kicked out of the university yet again, to the point where nobody would fucking look at him or talk to him or come near him. And he looked at me and he's like trembling now. And he goes, God did want me to be rich, but I had other plans. And I'm just like,
yeah, that's rough.
Oh. So if you believe it's going to happen, and if you don't believe it's going to happen, it ain't going to happen.
Yeah, it's a hell of a story. That guy would have been a good voice actor.
He had an amazing voice. It bothered me because my sponsor was rich and had a 911 Porsche and a brand new $40,000 grill and a Rolex and a house and a rich wife. And my dumbass believed that I was fucked for life and I was never going anywhere.
Yeah.
It's like, come on. I'm 35 and I'm fucking cleaning golden retrievers' anal glands, like squeezing their anal glands and getting their shit all over me. And I'm babysitting drug addicts at this rehab that don't want to be there, and like washing people's cars and cleaning up dog poop. Like, it just seemed like it was almost like a cosmic joke.
Right.
And I thought fortune and fame was going to fix me. I really did. I thought like fortune and fame was going to fix me. I found out, I don't know how many years later, but I remember when I got my first multi-million-dollar check, and I was one of those people that's like, well, someday I'm going to have all this money and all my problems are going to be solved. And I remember I sold a piece of one of my companies, and I got this check, and they wanted to wire it to me. I said, no, I need a check. And they're like, okay, we could just send you a wire. I'm like, no, I have to have a check, because I wanted to hold it, because I didn't believe it.
Right.
And I didn't cash it for about a week. I would just look at it all day, every day. I couldn't tell anybody because my friends were going to be jealous, or people would ask me for a loan. I told Kelly Slater and Rick Rubin. Those are the only two people I felt comfortable sharing what had happened. And finally I went to the bank and, had this amazing experience of handing it to the teller who knew me, and she looked at it and she just like freaked out. I'm like, I know. And she like deposited it. And I don't know, like 72 hours later, I sunk into one of the worst depressions that I've ever had in my life, because I thought that success equals happiness. and success doesn't equal happiness.
No, it's a
Success is
choice.
success.
Yeah.
There's a janitor out there in Cleveland, Ohio,
Mm-hmm.
that's happier than the three of us are ever going to be put
Right.
together. But he's got a wife who loves him unconditionally.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a dog that loves him
Yeah,
unconditionally.
it's all relative.
Yeah.
On what you perceive as what makes you happy, you
Yeah.
know, and the choices you make around that is up to you.
Yeah. And we are going to co-create this existence with the power and grace of a living, loving God, with our words, with our thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
and with our actions.
Yeah.
And that's the secret. And no one wants to believe that,
Mm-hmm.
because everyone's like, oh, that's bullshit. Because if that was really true, then everything's on me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Eric's fault. It's not Doug's fault. It's not my parents' fault. It's not my school teacher's fault.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when St. John's High School kicked me out in 1986 they said I hit a nun, and I didn't hit a nun. I pushed a nun, and they kicked me out. I hated those motherfuckers. I was so mad. I was like, these guys have ruined my life. They've ruined my life. I got to go to public school now. My life is over. I ended up dropping out. They ruined my life. And a year ago, I got a phone call from the new president of St. John's Jesuit High School. And this guy was so awesome. And he's like, young man, I've read your book, and I'm so impressed with all of your accomplishments. And I just can't believe this is so wonderful. And although, you know, you didn't go to our school and graduate from our school, I still feel like you're a part of our St. John's alumni.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be willing to come back and speak to our student body? And I said, yeah, I mean, yeah, of course. And he goes, okay, well, what is your speaking fee, young man? I said, it's a lot, but can I get a diploma? And he started laughing. And I said, no, I'm serious. I want a diploma.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, of course. We can give you an honorary diploma.
That's awesome.
And when I went back there and I drove onto that school, onto that property, and I meet this dude, and the priest comes out and they're showing me around the school, whatever. And I'm like, how in the fuck did I blame St. John's for my life being messed up?
Mm-hmm.
It's the school's fault? And I go up and I talk to these kids, and afterwards all these kids rush up to the stage and they're hugging me, they're high-fiving me, they're asking to take pictures with me. And the one tall kid, athlete, gorgeous looking kid, really loud, he goes, are you gonna walk with us? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. And then I look over at the guy and he goes, I'm listening. And I'm like, am I? And he goes, we can make that happen. And like in that moment, like it was just like this, oh my God.
Any chance the nun that you pushed handed you the diploma?
No, but my health teacher, my gym coach, and my football coach was
Yeah.
still there. He's 80 years old. He's still teaching. No, I don't know who's going to hand me my diploma, but I'm going to get my diploma in May.
That's awesome, man.
At 54 years old.
Good for you, dude.
And you know, again, the point is, if a fucking moron like me
Mm-hmm.
can climb out of any of those hopeless states of despair, if a overweight, non-athletic, unhappy, probably pretty miserable kid can climb up out
I
of
thought you were gonna keep going there for a little while. Just,
No,
fat. No,
I don't care.
But I mean, think about it. Like you're traveling around the country. You're probably going to be moving to Austin. You're interviewing all these amazing people. You're living a life beyond your wildest dreams. What if I would have told that guy on the first day of jail that this is what your life was going to look like, however many years later?
Right. No way. I'd be like,
No
"There's
way. No way.
There's no way. But I think that, like Khalil says, and like you said, that you have to have this like whatever it takes mentality.
mm-hmm.
To where you have to say, you know what, like I'm gonna give it all that I have.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna do whatever I can today. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why the whole one day at a time thing I think is just so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Is because it's just focus on today. Don't
Yeah.
focus on next week, not next month. But a lot of people, when they're coming out of hell, especially if they've struggled with addiction, where your brain is wired for instant gratification.
Mm-hmm.
They want everything overnight. They
Sure.
want the success. They want the money. They want trust. They want confidence. but it's not built
No.
that quickly. You have to go through the darkness for a while and just just develop that whatever it takes, the attitude. And then once you do that, you start stacking those small wins. Days add up.
Yeah, it
Life
cracks
starts
me
to
up
change.
when I see the 21-year-old that's like, fuck, what am I gonna do? This
Right.
job. And
Right.
it's like, are you fucking nuts?
Yeah.
You know what I
Buddy,
mean?
there's a guy at the gym. He's probably not a member anymore, but he's a few years. How old are you?
36.
Okay, so he's a couple years, I think about your age, and I'm trying to give him this talk of the stuff that we're talking about, and he's just like, oh, that stuff doesn't work. I'm like, what do you mean it doesn't work? Like, just do it. No, it doesn't. That doesn't work. That I tried that. I'm like, have you ever tried getting like really crazy? Like, maybe like start going to church or start going to temple, read the Torah, read the Bible. Like, nah, that shit doesn't work. I'm like, but how do you know? Oh, I've tried that. I know he's full of shit.
Even if he did, for how long?
Right.
You know?
He wants to stay in victimhood. People think like, oh God, depression, you get a big kick out of depression. Depression gives you an identity. Depression is like, you can feel it. It's familiar and you get a charge out of it. And then you can also start to justify your behaviors, right? I was always a cheater, always, until not this girlfriend, but my previous girlfriend. So I guess I was a cheater until I was 36. Always. Cheated on every girlfriend, like a real piece of shit. But I justified it because I was depressed and because they were going to leave me anyway. So what's the big deal? So I might as well hit on their best friend. I might as well hit on their sister. Real piece of shit mentality. But I truly believed that that's just like how guys were and that's how life functioned. And it wasn't until, again, my previous girlfriend, when we first started dating when I was 36, 37 years old, she sat me down, she looked at me and she goes, because I told her, I was honest, like, yeah, I've always been a cheater, blah, blah, blah. She looked me dead in the eye. She goes, if you even think about cheating on me, I will turn around, I will walk away, and I will never come back. Scared the shit out of me. And I never cheated. I never cheated. There was one massage when I was in Indonesia. The person's name was Pat.
Yeah.
Very large Adam's apple. And it's another podcast about getting canceled. But the truth is, had she not had proper boundaries and had I not been working a spiritual program, I wouldn't have understood what real intimacy is like. And when I hear grown men, not boys, when I hear boys talking, I want to get some pussy and whatever, like, yeah, good for you. But when I hear grown men talking about, I want to get some pussy and this and that, I'm just like, fuck, you still stuck in that fucking 6th grade mentality? It's not about that.
No.
It's about finding a woman and building a true partnership with that woman. You know my girlfriend. You know she's way out of my fucking league.
Yeah, she's a rock star.
But what I did was I worked on myself long enough and built up enough security and stability within myself and became, to the best of my ability, an honorable man. And I'm reaching towards becoming the man that God intended me to become. That attracted her.
Yeah.
I don't know how. I mean, I literally, we're 8.5 years in, and not every day. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but usually like 3 or 4 times a week, I'll be getting up to get something out of the fridge or whatever, and I'll look over on the sofa and I'll look at her and I'll just be like, oh my God, what is she doing with me? You know?
Yeah, it takes hopefully you came to that realization like, okay, I'm currently doing a lot of scumbag behavior and I want to be better because I know what the path looks like. And I'm also speaking from experience. Like I never did drugs due to my family's history, but I, with women, played house for a long time and justified it for a long time. And then, up until recently, it's like, okay, well, I see where this path goes. And I'm the funny guy with my guy friends and, with my lady friends, like there's some banter because maybe they think I'm charming, but also, I know that this is a lonely road because when I'm not with my friends, it's just going to be me or whoever I'm shooting flares to come over. And that's just like, sounds fun. It's not. And it's lonely. And given that, with that said, I think hopefully people can come to that realization themselves, or it takes an incredible partner like Taylor
Yeah.
to be like, holy shit, I don't want to lose this person, and
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure I can become the man that she's proud of.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's no limit. I mean, there's no, you know, I did end up, I was in a band. I did get my SAG card. I was running around in that world and hanging out at the Garden of Eden and hanging out at, God, I'm dating myself if anyone knows what the Garden of Eden is, but hanging out at Louis the 14th and
Yeah.
dating these B and C list actresses and doing drugs and drinking. There was an incredible honeymoon period when I was in my mid to late 20s with drugs and alcohol and almost fame. And the truth is, it's an appetite that you cannot satiate. It's an appetite that I mean, I probably shouldn't say this. Mercury's in retrograde, and I always get nervous about this, but there were days that went by where I had multiple partners in one day, in a day, multiple partners when I was in my 20s, and it seemed normal. You know, we were
Why you do that itch sometimes at the gym?
It's a rash. There's no satisfying it.
No, dude.
There's no satisfying it. But but when you find a woman and you treat her with respect, of course there's intimacy and sex and all that stuff, but that's not even the point. The point is I'm aching for her to come home right now. I'm aching. You know, as much as I'd love to chop it up with you guys tomorrow night at ABBA and be a big shot. You've been to ABBA with me.
Yeah, you
before.
pay, so I go.
But I'm on the list. Like, no one's on the list. And I got lucky and I got on the list because I treated the owner to an acai bowl. But I walk in and I'm a big shot and, you know, they have to seat me and whatever. As cool as that sounds, I want to be in my pajamas at 6 p.m. with my girl on our sofa with our cats. It doesn't even matter what we're watching. Just the laughter and the camaraderie and the knowingness. And, you know, it's there's nothing better. There's nothing better than having a true partnership with another human being. There's nothing better than having a relationship with my creator and having the faith and knowing that 3 days ago, as tough as I'd love to present myself and, oh, yeah, I crawled my way out of hell and now I'm a big success. 3 days ago, my cat got out. It's not uncommon. My cat would get out a couple times a week. 15, 20 minutes later, cat comes back. 2 hours later, cat's not back. I'm calling Taylor. You better get over here. Got to search the neighborhood. 4 hours later, cat's not back. It was the 5th hour. She's out. She's doing the loop. She's calling him. She's got the can of tuna and whatever. I don't know where it came from, but it started here, and it just slowly started coming up. It didn't even get to the lump. You know how you have a lump for a while when you're trying not to cry?
Yeah.
It just came out, and I started crying, and I started to panic, and I started to cry so hard. And I do remember thinking, like, you got to fucking get your shit together, man. Your girlfriend's going to be back soon. You don't want her to see you like this. You know, I was fucking hysterical, and I couldn't get myself together. And she came in, and then she started crying. And then all night, I was up and I was terrified, and the cat didn't come back. And I got the door open. It's 40 degrees outside. Then it's 35 degrees outside. The door is open. I'm crying. She's crying, whatever. Like, shit's going to happen. We're going to go through really tragic stuff. Now, the great news is, thank God, and I prayed all night, somehow the cat came back at 5:20 in the morning, and it was warm. It wasn't cold, which means somebody grabbed him and pulled him in. Fucking thing had a collar on it with the phone number, with the address. People don't care. It's an exotic cat. Someone decided to grab it, but he's also an incessant meower. And at 5 a.m. on the dot, he lets out this howl, and he won't stop until you let him out. So my guess is at 5 in the morning,
Someone changed their mind.
Somebody changed their mind. Thank God.
Yeah.
Haven't let him out since. And it was interesting to experience that and realize that we go through this whole life, and yes, our bodies are going to change, and you know, numerically we get older, or chronologically I guess is the word, we're going to get older, but we're still that same soul on the inside, and we want connection, we want acceptance, we want love. And And the only way that I know how to build community and be accepted is to serve, is to not put poison in my body, is to move and to sweat and exercise, and try to be kind and loving towards everybody, and even the people that don't deserve it. Those are probably the most important people that I need to try and be kind and loving
Sure.
towards, because again, treating Cindy Crawford to a smoothie doesn't make me a good person, but how I treat the busboy when no one's looking,
Mm-hmm.
that's how you're going to know who I am
Fair.
as a man.
I appreciate that. Those are some good words. Doug, you got anything to close us out with?
I mean, yeah, there's a couple things. I think that one, like Khalil brought up a good point, and we kind of touched on it earlier too, in that people think once you go on a change, whether it's you're trying to change your health, whether it's you're trying to get sober, whatever, that life is just gonna be all of a sudden magical, right? That you're gonna be happy. And the reality is, like sobriety and recovery, for instance, like yes, it's an awesome step to abstain from all the drugs, or whatever. But life's still gonna suck, right? Life's still gonna happen. Khalil mentioned the thing that happened with the cat. I've gone through stuff. You've gone through stuff, and what changes is how you deal with it. Like Khalil's first, instinct wasn't to say, "Oh, where do I find heroin?" It was like, "How do I get support right now? I'm gonna call Taylor. How can I figure out how to solve this problem?"
Reach out to my neighbors.
Yeah, exactly.
You're right. I reached out to my neighbors.
Right. It's like your thought process changes, right? And that's why it's so important to work on yourself and to develop all these habits when you're getting into recovery, so that when life gets hard, you're able to choose something different. The other thing is that victimhood, there's a commodity in that. Like people like feeling sorry for other people. It's easy. I mean, it's easy. We're all compassionate human beings, right? Unless you're a sociopath. And the biggest thing that I got caught up in personally, and a lot of other people do this, is they find something bad that happened to them in their life, and then every other decision they make in their life, they can just point back to that one bad thing that happened and just blame it on that. Oh, my parents got divorced, and that's why my life's falling apart. And people are like, dude, your parents got divorced 15 years ago. You were bullied in school 15 years ago. Because someone was like, dude, like, you're not 9 anymore.
Yeah.
You're 21, right? And so
31 or 41.
Exactly. And it's like the whole idea of my show the adversity advantage is to help people, shameless plug, to help people understand that it's not
Is that the name of your book?
The podcast.
Oh, the podcast is the Adversity Advantage. Okay.
Yeah, and so it's like, it's not the hardship that breaks people. It's not the divorce. It's like somebody gets divorced and they're like, all right, I'm going to go drink like 2 bottles of wine every day for the next like 15 years.
Yeah.
Right? What destroyed your life? The divorce, or you drinking the bottles of wine every day, right?
Damn.
And so it's easy to point back at that one thing and just say, this is why I behave this way. And if you can figure that out and understand that that is not an excuse to self-destruct and to feel sorry for yourself for the rest of your life, you'll win in life because you will take personal responsibility for the good and the bad. You'll take accountability. You'll take ownership. You'll realize that you have power. You have control, because once you give power up to other people, to other things, it's over.
Right.
Over. Because you will be in this rat race of blaming everybody else for your problems. Victimhood. And you don't want to be that person.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are. And that's the one thing, that was the paradigm shift that happened for me, was learning that I was the author of the story. And that's it's easy to say that out loud. It's very difficult to accept that, but I am the author of the story. You're absolutely right. I was drinking and using at my childhood. I was molested. My parents didn't love me. Yeah, dude, you're 30.
Right.
What the fuck? That was 25 years ago. 25 years later, you're doing drugs because you were molested. It's not an excuse.
No.
It's not an excuse. Yeah, getting out of victimhood, taking, what do they call it? Taking sovereignty over my own life, taking responsibility for my own life, and realizing that I'm the author of my story. I mean, it would have been cool if I could have learned that at 25. But I didn't.
Right.
I learned it much later. I think sober at 33, and I think I really took sovereignty over myself and took responsibility for myself during the great tragedy of my mother getting the cancer. And by the way, my mom beat the cancer, as frail and little as she was. And my mom's was insane. I mean,
Mhm.
my mother, she wouldn't do the fucking. She did the radiation, but she wouldn't do the chemotherapy against doctors, AMA, against medical advice. My mother said, "I have this wonderful tea, and it's gonna make the cancer go away," and she fucking believed it. And she was cancer free a year later, and the cancer never came back. My mom lived to be 83 years old. But the best thing is 4 years after I made that vow with God, I flew back to Ohio, to Toledo, Ohio, and I bought my mom a house in the nicest neighborhood in the town that I grew up in Ottawa Hills. I bought my mom a house, and I got her to retire, and I set up a little annuity for her, and I took care of her for the next 17 years of her life. And I'm going to continue building SunLife Organics into a global brand. SunLife Organics will be all over the world. And at a certain point, I'm going to make a shitload of fucking money. Nothing will ever compare to getting to become the hero in my own journey. Getting to go back and take care of my mom. My mom was a terrible mom. My parents were terrible parents. It's not the point. Point was the love that she didn't give me, which I could have used as an excuse for the rest of my fucking life.
Sure.
The love that she didn't give me, I went and gave to her. And I was free.
Yeah, those are special moments. Don't become victim and get stuck in what could be an hour, a day, maybe a week of sadness and why me, and you blink and 20 years later you're still that person.
Yeah, it's horrible. I did it.
Right.
I lived my whole life as a victim. I lived my whole life as a victim. I was always angry at whoever was president was wrong. My teachers were wrong. The St. John's was wrong. St. Pat's was wrong for kicking me out. Everybody was wrong. Until one day I looked at myself and realized, like, oh fuck, this is my life.
Right.
And I'm the author.
Yeah.
So I get to write whatever story. The most powerful moment in my life was when my sponsor Robbie screamed at me and he said, "Stop fucking glamorizing drugs and stop talking about your bottom and stop talking about how you were molested and stop. Can you just fucking..." He was like, "Can you shut the fuck up?" You would have loved him. Robbie, Lower East Side guy. Lower East Side guy.
Sounds great.
Like the real deal.
Yeah.
Can you just shut, ex-dope dealer, can you just shut the fuck up? And he said it, I think, accidentally. He goes, "Who in the fuck would you be if you dropped your story?"
Right.
And I'm like, he's like, who would you be if you just dropped your fucking story? If you stopped telling your sad fucking story of Khail Rafati, the fucking junkie and the fucking guy that parents didn't love. If you dropped that story, who would you be? And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, figure it out. And he stormed off.
That's awesome.
That was the moment. That was the night. I went upstairs and I'm like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
I'm the author of all this.
Right.
Bad shit's gonna happen. You had it fucking tough as a kid. You had it tougher than most. I don't know your full story, but I know you had it tough. I had it tough. No one had it tougher than Oprah. No one. She got raped by her own fucking uncle. She was molested when she was a child, got raped by her uncle, was pregnant, I think, at 13, grew up overweight and black in a time when being born black was a massive disadvantage. Not that it's not today, but 65, I don't know how old Oprah is, 65, 70 years ago, you know, that was a real fucking challenge.
For sure.
Well, how come Oprah didn't smoke crack? How come Oprah didn't cheat on all of her partners? How come Oprah didn't, you know, do all the stupid shit? I lived my life without a moral compass. I was the most selfish, fucking moronic idiot on the planet, and I justified it all because I had a sad story. Well, Oprah had a sadder story, much sadder story. How come she didn't act like a fucking moron like I did?
Chose not to be the victim.
She chose not to be the victim, and she's helped 1 billion people.
Yeah.
She helped me.
Go ahead.
I would say like the last thing that I'll add is like, I think that there's benefit to understanding what you went through from a pattern and behavior standpoint, because I think a lot of our patterns and habits and how we view relationships and stuff is developed based on how we see our parents interact, kids, and how we grow up. Like if you're somebody that, you know, is afraid of intimacy and your parents were divorced or whatever, somebody passed away, then I think it's important to understand, like, oh, this is why I'm afraid of X, but then use that to work on your life and get better, not as an excuse to behave in a certain manner. And I think, like, the thing with recovery that I think is so beautiful, and that's been a big theme of the conversation, is like, it teaches you that you don't know everything. It teaches you the value of asking for help, seeking out mentors, learning from others, being accountable, doing what you say you're going to do, and then also just like helping other people, being of service, and just understanding that life isn't about you. And I think in the world that we all play in this fitness, self-help, online world, it can be easy to make life about us and say, oh, it's about what I do and what I've achieved and all the success. But it sometimes can be easy to forget that we wouldn't be here without other people helping us. Wouldn't. Like, I wouldn't be here without my cellmate. I wouldn't be here without my grandparents taking me in after I got out of jail. And I wouldn't be here, if certain people hadn't given me a chance in the fitness industry when I was a convicted felon, like all this stuff. And I keep the workout program that my cellmate gave me in my place for that very reason, because I never want to forget what life was like when I was an egotistical, victim maniac who just cared about my life and all of my own problems.
Yeah, dude, those things, those traumatic moments, whether they were self-conflicted or they just happened, that's our foundation. That's like the fucking, the concrete below us. That's what, if you utilize it as pillars, then you're going to be solid as a house, right? Like, if anything goes wrong, it's like, okay, before I fucking lose my mind or kill somebody, let me pull into that inventory of fucking pain, trauma, things that I thought I would never get out of. And then it's like, okay, I got through that. I can deal with someone breaking into my car, or I can deal with this. So, yeah, adversity advantage, baby.
Let's go.
Adversity advantage.
Well, by the way, before we I let you go again, I do need to go pick up my son in about 45 minutes.
Yeah.
But I love you both.
Love you
and
too,
I
buddy.
thank you both really for taking the time. I think there are people out there, with both of yours reach, that look up to you guys, and maybe they're sitting at home and thinking about getting into recovery or thinking about going back. And hopefully this is helping some people. And if not, hopefully you enjoyed the banter. And if people do want to Google that watch, what kind of watch is that, Paul?
It's the Rolex Daytona Rose Gold.
Yeah, tomato.
Oyster Flex or something. I don't know. I got it. I think I got it. I think I got it for my 50th birthday.
And Freddie Mercury gave you that necklace, right?
Freddie Mercury gave me something else that I'll never be able to get rid of. But I'll always remember Freddie.
Let me hit this button.
I love Freddie.
All right. Much love, guys. Thanks for listening. Appreciate you both.
That was fun.